All right, so Alabama State's without QB1, without QB2. They're on the QB3, and they got two freshmen on the team. Well, let's break all of that down because I have a big question. Are they still championship contenders? Oh, yeah. It's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey's over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to get 20% off your order. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Alcorn because they really need this game versus Edward Waters because they ain't got right all year. And I think that this could be their opportunity to get right if they're going to ever do it. But we start off the first two episodes with a look at Alabama State and their quarterback situation. In segment 2, we'll look at how did James Hayes fare in his first start with Alabama State and just the entirety of the QB situation. But let's answer this question. Are the Alabama State Hornets still championship contenders? There was a lot of expectations that were placed on the Hornets going into the season. There was a lot of it. And when you look at the preseason polls, that expectation was for them to go out there and win. I think that everything changes when you lose Andrew Body, and that's a lot of that's going to get to segment 2. But overall, when you're just looking at it, most people expected Alabama State to be one of the best teams in the SWAC, if not the best team. They've been one of the best teams for the last couple of years, but I would not say they were in that tier 1. So I think to be a true championship contender, you have to be a tier 1 team within your conference. There was 2 of those in the MEAC. There was one of those in the SWAC last year. It was just FAMU. That was the only tier 1 team, in my opinion. Alabama State was supposed to join that tier because they've been right on the outside looking in. If you remember how I spoke about the whole dividing of tiers in the MEAC, they will be in that Morgan State, South Carolina State realm where they're just looking to take a step up. I don't know if they can do it anymore because they have the same fatal flaw, quarterback play. That's going to be the thing, is you're going in with a freshman at quarterback. We'll get into that in segment 2. I'm trying to tread carefully because I don't want to step on too many talking points for the next segment, but these are 2 separate questions. One's an evaluation of that quarterback. One is evaluation of the team and their ability to reach heights. So it is different. But I'll say this, Hayes is a true freshman. The reason I don't think that Alabama State is going to be a championship contender in 2024 is because as a freshman, he got 3 weeks to get right. Alabama State faces FAMU on October 5th. I don't think you beat FAMU without good quarterback play. And, I don't want to say as if he's just a bad player, but he's a freshman. He's inexperienced. It takes time for people to be able to rise to being a championship quarterback. That is a natural progression. So what I'm assuming is that Hayes goes through the natural progression. That means you're going to have to do everything right other than that. Right? Like everything has to be right around your quarterback for you to be a championship contender if he's not playing at a championship level. Your defense has to be absolutely on point. Can't be any breaks in it. And they had that for years, right? Like they had that for years. Last year, great defense. Year before that, great defense. I had James Williams on the show. He was talking about how we had a really good defense in year 1 under Eddie Robinson, and we took a step up. They had a defense that would have been satisfactory to pretty much all programs around the nation in 2022. Then in 2023, they took a step up, and now it's like, okay, we're in that upper echelon. So if the defense can reach that level again, what's missing? The same thing that was missing years before. And that's the offense. That's that offensive side of the ball. You're going to have to run the ball really well. You're going to have to be dominant running the ball. And, against FAMU, they've had their struggles against the run. So that's obviously the way to beat them. You're going to have to do it, whether that's with Kinsey, whether that's with, gosh, the dude had a crazy name. I don't know how to say it. But it ends with like Wirtz or something like that, right? But you're going to have to do all of those things really well doesn't even suffice. You're going to have to be elite in all other aspects of the ball other than quarterback, because I just think that Hayes is going to take time to develop. This is not an insult of Hayes. I hope I'm not being too repetitive in the sense of trying to emphasize that I'm not critiquing Hayes, or I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not dismissing him. What I'm saying is, if he goes through the trajectory that probably 90% of quarterbacks go through when they go into college, this won't be the year. Maybe next year. Maybe he can show something this year that shows he can be the guy in next season. Because to be clear, body's done for the season. It doesn't feel like O'Brien's coming back because he has a concussion history, and I just don't know if he's coming back. I kind of don't want him to come back just for pure safety of himself, right? So it's likely going to be James Hayes, and he got knocked out of the last game, so it may end up being Sims, right? So regardless, freshmen, you're going through freshmen. I don't know if they can develop quick enough to turn this into a championship team, unfortunately. And I really like the culture at Alabama State. I really like those guys in leadership. I genuinely do. If you're talking about Eddie Robinson, you're talking about James Williams, like, I really like those guys in the job that they do, the way they handle leadership. And we'll get into that whole Eddie Robinson thing in segment 2, because I know people have an opinion. I want to dispel some of the things that I think I helped create on accident. I think the other side of this is, there a team that's just far and away better than everybody? I don't know. Is there a 2022 Jackson State? I don't know. Is there a 2023 FAMU? I don't know. That's the other part. That's the only thing that's keeping Alabama State alive to me. That and a quick development at quarterback. Just not winning without quarterback play. I can't stress that enough. I don't think that if you were, Alabama State would have been much closer in the past 2 seasons, but they weren't. I think that Daniel Richardson is a really good quarterback. I think that Jacoby Moore is a good quarterback. I know TC Taylor talked about playing 2 quarterbacks this year or this week, but I like Jacoby and Morgan. I liked what I saw against in ULM. It's funny because I was kind of slow to Morgan. And now as soon as I come around, you talking about playing 2 quarterbacks. Dang, TC. Want to keep me on my toes, huh? But let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. But that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to quarterback play, like everything else in football. Like 9 times out of 10, if you don't have the quarterback, you're not going to make a championship run. And when you're looking at teams like FAMU who do have dynamic quarterback play, they do have dynamic offense. You're looking at Jackson State, who does have a really good offense, right? Like, I think Jackson State is slowly but surely looking like the team that is the team to beat in the SWAC. Be honest with you. That ULM game is looking much, much better. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, so let me shut up now. But overall, there's nobody running away with this conference. There's nobody running away with this division. That keeps Alabama State close. But in a close battle, I think quarterback is going to be the deciding factor. And you have a freshman who's trying to gain experience on the job. If he's ready by October 5th against FAMU and we see it, I'm completely changing my tone. Keeping that same energy is so overrated. No, I got new information. Like, I'm changing. I'm changing my energy. If all of a sudden James Hayes or Zachary Sims looks prepared against FAMU and they go out there and they look really good, different conversation. You got Samford, you have a bye week, then you have Bethune-Cookman, then you have FAMU. You obviously can't falter against Cookman either, but FAMU is the game. You have to win that game. If you don't win that game, you've significantly hampered your ability to win the SWAC. And that's what this all comes back to. Is Alabama State a championship contender? It would depend on the back of James Hayes, Zachary Sims, whoever ends up being the quarterback. I think that they're too young to develop that fast to be a championship contender this year, but they can show promise and maybe develop into that in 2025. Whew. Okay, that's the championship situation. Now let's get into what it's all about. The quarterback play. I'm excited to see this because I think it's an important conversation to have. Alabama State's quarterback situation. Let's evaluate that based off what we saw against Miles College on Saturday from James Hayes. We didn't see anything from Zachary Sims, but what we saw from James Hayes, I saw some tendencies. I saw some skill set things I want to evaluate, and I also heard some comments about Eddie Robinson and how he views Andrew Body's involvement in the program and how he wants it to look moving forward. We got a lot to unpack in segment 2, so let's go ahead and do it as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football. Now, when I'm looking at this game, I'm sitting here thinking, I get to be Eddie Robinson. I get to be TC Taylor. I get to be Chris Dishman. I get to be Trey Oliver, Larry Scott. Like, I get to be these gentlemen, and I finally get my chance to lead my program to the promised land. So really, like all of those guys, but I get to be Chris Dishman, and I get to lead TSU to the promised land. You see it on my shirt right now. KTSU2. Shout out to the home team. But then when I say that, I really am the head coach because you get to pull out that phone. Boom. I'm playing. Yeah, I want to offer this guy a scholarship. Let's go ahead and do it. Click. I want to hire this person on the coaching staff. Let's do it. Click. I want to go ahead and recruit this player. Click. I really am running the show. I love that. I love it. I get to be the head coach. Y'all remember the head coach mode in back in the day in these other games that I don't know if I can say because they're not cutting the check. So, but you remember those things. This is like that on your mobile device. 100% playable offline. That means even if you're in the air, I just caught that flight from Baton Rouge. I could have played this on the air, but I was asleep. But anyway, neither here nor there. Now all I have to say is download the game, Ultimate College Football Head Coach, or go to ultimate-cfb.com to download the game today. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Saints, Locked On LSU, Locked On Pelicans. We need to get a Locked On Tulane. Let's just keep it all in the state. But for your second listen after me, go run down the Louisiana podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, we've looked at Alabama State in their championship hopes because I really do think that's important because they were supposed to be an upper echelon team. The question of are they still championship contenders largely comes down to the quarterback situation. I tried to trade carefully because I knew I had a lot to say here, but I didn't want to step on anything because I didn't want to be repetitive. So hopefully, I think that are they a championship contender is a way bigger story than evaluating their quarterback situation. It's a way more important story. It may not be bigger, but it's the more important question that you need to ask. I think if they can get good quarterback play, they can still be a championship team. There was a limit on how much they could have shown me against Miles to answer that, just being honest. But there's a lot that I was looking for against Miles from the quarterback, James Hayes. And I can't necessarily say that I saw a lot of it. If I had, I would have came in singing a different tune in segment 1. I probably would have sounded a lot more optimistic that he could have skirted that whole freshman year buildup that you typically go through, right? So even as I'm critiquing his performance, please remember that I do believe this is normal. I'm not giving up on the player. I'm not saying he's bad. He's shown me some things. He showed me some things that I liked. He showed me some things that I didn't like. But overall, if you're looking at the quarterback situation, there's a reason that he's in. And that's because Andrew Body, Jonah O'Brien, both injured. O'Brien has a history of concussion, so I hear. It's time to wrap it up. Those things are scary. Those things make people retire. I think it's time to give it up. You've been in college for a while. You got a lot of free education. Let's protect yourself. Just being honest. As for Andrew Body, obviously he's out for the season with a shoulder injury. I have been negligent and reckless in the way that I use my words on this show when discussing how that situation played out. I don't know if I said that the Body family was led astray during their recruitment, but I believe that what I said was that they wouldn't have signed up for how he was used. Though that is true, in leaving it there, I made it sound like, I think I gave the insinuation that he was led astray. This was not the vision that they were pitched. I still stand with that. Like, I know that. But I don't think that Eddie Robinson came in and sold him a dream and then said, we got one over on him. I do not believe that's what happened. I believe that's how people are talking in my comments. Also, it's been a week and a half, so I wasn't going to go, or really a week. It's been a week. I wasn't going to go in on that direction in segment one. It's not the more important question. I don't know if it's even still the bigger story about the quarterback situation. I think that the quarterback is a smaller part of the bigger question. Who is Alabama State? Are they a championship contender? Are they a tier one program now? That I think is a smaller part of that. But I did want to clear that up because I just think it's unfair. I think it's unfair. I believe that when they recruited Andrew Body, Eddie Robinson envisioned him being the starting quarterback, clear cut. First off, when I said he wasn't, they didn't envision him being used like that. I meant competing for the job. I didn't even mean running the ball as many times as he did. I meant competing for the job. And I think that was a plan. And then new hires come in, new players come in, and now there's a competition. I, I think it's an important designation or distinction because one can result in an attack on Eddie Robinson's character, and to me, that's not what it was. I could be being tricked by him. I guess that could be the case. I could be being duped, but I don't think that. I don't think that. I think that Andrew Body's, or excuse me, I think that Eddie Robinson's a pretty stand-up guy. I don't think that he lied to Andrew Body. He made comments recently that he wants him to stick around. He hopes that he stays. We saw Andrew Body on the sideline at the Miles game, and I saw that with TSU. So my comments about whether or not he stays at Alabama State haven't really shaken because I saw him on the sideline. He was on the sideline at TSU, and I think he fully planned on leaving immediately. I really do. I don't think that it was a long time for him. I think maybe he may have grappled with it for a second, but he knew he was leaving pretty shortly after being injured, in my opinion. No inside information there. Just guessing. Same way I'm doing here. But he says that Robinson said the Body's like a coach on the field. So when he's coaching, who is he coaching up? He's coaching up James Hayes as of Miles. I think he suffered a big hit. I don't know if he'll be back for the next week against Samford. But what I saw from James Hayes was a lot of deep shots. Surprisingly, I saw him take a lot of deep shots, but I think he throws a good deep ball. Like I think that James Hayes actually throws a nice looking deep shot. He opened up the game with a deep shot. His second pass was a deep shot that ended up being a touchdown. I couldn't tell how poorly that the safety played it. I think he probably could have been over the top a little bit, but I thought it was a pretty good pass. He showed nice touch on a wheel route to the running back that ended up getting called back because of a penalty. I think he showed some good things on deep shots, but when it came to shallow, I didn't like his ball placement. His interception, though it shouldn't have been picked off, it was behind the receiver that led to the tip up. Kind of got to share blame on that. You want the receiver to catch it because it was still a catchable pass, but he didn't catch it because it was behind him, right? Like that, it was catchable, but it should have been much better. I thought that there was another third down where his timing with his receiver wasn't the same. His receiver kind of not stumbled, but kind of stuttered, stuttered the word I'm looking for because I'm trying to make sure like they weren't on the same time. They weren't timing the drag route the same. I thought that he threw it to a place that was like, I think there was a couple of ball placement things that I'm really nitpicking, but he threw 11 passes, completed 5, he under 50%. You want more from him. Overall, I think he showed a lot of promise in deep shots. I think he showed aggression. I think he showed comfort. I just want some of the shorter routes to be better placed. That can lead to yards after the catch. That can lead to not having that interception. Overall, that's the biggest thing. Ball placement in the less than 15-yard range. That's what I want out of James Hayes because to me, he's going to be the quarterback. He's going to be the guy. I didn't love it, but it's a start, and it's start one. Let's give him some grace. Now, as he pushed forward, team that ain't getting no grace, Alcorn State, you got to get together. Got to tighten up, baby, because that 3 points in 2 weeks, that ain't the move. I think this Edward Waters game is coming at the right time for him. So let's go ahead and look at why that is as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, and 5 Hour Energy is the move for pretty much any day when you have extended hours. It's the move anytime that you have a little bit of a lull in your day, because 5 Hour Energy, they really do help you push through for that back half of the work shift. They really do help you push through for that late night cramming situation if you're still studying. Shout out to all my college kids who are watching the show. They come in a multitude of flavors, whether that's watermelon, tropical burst, berry. They come in a multitude of flavors, and they're a small package too. So you can just take a quick shot of it. You can take it anywhere you need to. You can fit in your pocket. Like, it's really that tiny. So no matter where you're going, it's portable and it's easy. So go ahead and go to 5hourenergy.com. That's 5hourenergy.com. If you use the code LOCKEDONCFB, you get 20% off your first offer. You can't pair that with any subscriptions or any other offers, or excuse me, off your first order, but you can't combine it with anything else, but you still get 20% off. So go ahead and go to 5hourenergy.com today to get you some of that 5-hour energy. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. We're going to look at Alcorn, and we're going to look at some of the people who are under the microscope a little bit. I got 4 games that I really want to point to. 4 to 5. I don't know if I'm going to attack all of them. I think I'll probably leave out this Grambling game. Maybe. I don't know. Tennessee State got mollywopped by North Dakota State. Actually, I'm just going to say that because that's not much to talk about. Games like that, I don't think it's much to take away. You want to see where you're lacking, and it feels like when you have it like that, you're lacking everywhere. When you lose a game like they lost it to North Dakota State, you feel like you're lacking everywhere. I once heard multiple, actually not once, I've heard multiple coaches say you learn nothing in a blowout. It goes both ways. You learn nothing in a blowout victory. You learn nothing in a blowout loss. It's very rare because the margin is so far. It just, you're not going to be in that situation most times, right? Now, if you have a couple of blowouts in a row, you probably are learning something about your team. You suck. But unless that happens, most times you want tighter games so you can really read. And I don't think that Tennessee State got what they wanted from that North Dakota State matchup. And I'm not talking about a victory. But yes, let's get into Alcorn. Alcorn scored 3 points against UAB. They scored no points against Vanderbilt. I understand that these are FBS opponents, but you got to fight. Words of my guy, like Willie Green said that in the playoffs this first time around. You got to fight. You got to do better than 3 points in 2 weeks. You do. I don't care if it's Vanderbilt. I don't care if it's UAB. We've seen people put up more than 3. We've seen that. I don't think I'm asking for a lot. Vanderbilt, I guess I can let it slide. I can let the Vanderbilt game slide because SEC program, you're not just talking about FBS, you're talking about Power 4 within the FBS. But when it's right after a game where you only score 3 points, you just want to see something. You want to see something that gives you a tiny amount of hope. And these games typically aren't close when you play a team like Vanderbilt. Not like Vanderbilt's a great program or anything, but I think Vanderbilt had a pretty good week 1. Who they beat? Vanderbilt beat somebody week 1. Let's see. Vanderbilt football. They beat somebody. I can't remember who it was, though. And it was like surprising. Oh, yeah, they beat Virginia Tech. Didn't see that coming because I just expect Vanderbilt to lose to everybody. But, Missouri's the number 6 team in the nation. Anyway, the point is, at the number 6 team in the nation, your ranking is higher than the amount of points that Alcorn has scored. They're facing Edward Waters, a D2 program. You have to get right. It's the bane of my existence talking about D2 programs facing FCS competition. It's typically not close. It's not entertaining football. I really don't like skipping subdivisions. I'm not a fan of it. I think you should go schedule some FCS competition that's really high. And Alcorn has done that before. So it's not like they've never done that, but that's what they should continue to do. I think that's what all FCS programs should do. I really do like the model that Central has, but they have more games. But that's what, matter of fact, I think they play a D2 team. I'm okay with that because they have more games. They have more out of conference games. But the SWAC, don't get me started, man. Alcorn needs this. Alcorn needs to go up there and light it up. When I was at the Southern game, Coach Graves seemed upset, right? Like, follow me. I know it's like, why are you bringing up Southern? When I was at the Southern game, Coach Graves seemed upset that on the 1 yard line with less than a minute left, they were still trying to score. If you're Alcorn, I don't care how much time is left. I'm throwing the football. I'm trying to score at all times. I'm not taking anybody out. No starters leave. I've scored 3 points in 2 weeks. I don't care that it was UAB. I don't care that it was Vanderbilt. You're facing Edward Waters now. I'm trying to break the scoreboard because I need to put points on the board. I need to see it. I need my offense to feel it. At the end of the day, that's not enough points regardless of who you've been facing. Now you're going against Edward Waters and you got to run it up. You got to embarrass Edward Waters. You got to make up. You got to score on Edward Waters and act like you're scoring on Vanderbilt and UAB. That's what you have to do. because you need these points. You can't sneak by Edward Waters. I don't think you have that luxury. I don't think you have the luxury to not dominate Edward Waters. The confidence in that room could really slip if you have to struggle against this Division II program. I'm not trying to sit here and act like the sky is falling or anything. I'm trying to act like the sky could fall if you don't dominate in week 3. That's what I'm doing. Don't tell me it's Vanderbilt and UAB. I know. I'm giving them slick grace. I'm not giving them a lot of it, but just a little bit. But you got to go do this. You got to go do this against Edward Waters, man. Period. I know I said I was going to highlight all these other games, but this is the only one that I feel like really talking about right now. Alcorn needs this game because I think they need to see themselves put points on the board. It's that simple. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's all over and that they're an absolute garbage program. We'll see. Season still got to get played. But boy, you better do something against Edward Waters. That's all I know. So on tomorrow's episode, Jackson State is at the top of the NCAA HBCU rankings. So let's go ahead and look at those. Actually, I got a notification. I didn't even look. Could be talking about the wrong rankings, but I think that they are. And I think it's deserved. And I understand why they've taken over from North Carolina Central. So let's look at why the Tigers are back on top on tomorrow. That's Wednesday, on tomorrow's episode. But until next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.